OK, hi, everyone. I guess welcome to this talk. Basically, this is a kind of a counterintuitive talk to give to a group of web developers. We're here to talk about node.js, which is obviously JavaScript. And most of us in our day-to-day lives, one of the biggest tools that we have is JavaScript as a web developer. But today, I'm here to ask you what happens to your site when you turn the JavaScript off. Have you guys ever done this? Let's do it. It's fun. You go to your system preferences in Chrome. Watch me go. Content settings. Do not allow any site to run JavaScript. Ooh, scary. All right, so time for some audience participation. Can somebody please raise their hand and tell me the URL of the site that they work on a day-to-day basis? npmjs.com. That's a great one. All right, let's see what happens. You know what? It looks great. I think it looks fantastic. Absolutely everything is working perfectly. All right, anyone else? Anyone who, yes, right there. What's that? Ooh, can you do a little louder for me? Booking. All right, booking.com. Do I have it right? OK. OK, I see what we're going for here. Does this work? OK, say that I want to go to Amsterdam. And I want to do 09, what's tomorrow? Like 19, 2016. Is this going to work? Ah, so JavaScript is required for that formatting of that date, right? Switch to the day of the month. Oh, great idea. Yeah, oh, of course, we're in Europe. Thanks, guys. Those localization problems. And I'm even going to give it a 20. And all right, I'm going to fill out the rest of the form, right? Do it right. Is it going to work? Is it going to work? No. All right, so for the formatting of that original destination, right, JavaScript is required probably to enter a proper input value. OK, one more. Brave soul. 2. Yes, back there. Fusionpassenger.com. OK. OK, PH instead of F. All right. So the names of our companies are just as hard here as anything else. OK. Going to note that Google works fine without JavaScript. Nice. I have a sense that I might be missing something here, but it's a nice looking website. All right, I'm going to go to one of my favorite ones, though. This is yes. So have you ever seen this on a website? There are some very large sort of American companies that have this problem where their sites don't work without JavaScript at all. Squarespace, right? None of their client sites work without JavaScript in the least. So why is this bad? Like that stuff that I just did about turning off the JavaScript, whoever is going to do that? Well, let me tell you why I found it very useful in my life as a professional developer to turn the JavaScript off. Star Wars is also the theme of this talk. I hope you're going to enjoy that. So my name is Saltrick Meyer. I currently work at a company called BuzzFeed. Until 2 weeks ago, I actually worked at a company called Runway. And so this talk is based mostly on work that I did there. So I like to use Star Wars as a metaphor for a lot of things in life, because in the Star Wars universe, it's really amazing. They have interstellar travel and human cloning, but they don't have Wi-Fi or birth control. So there's an interesting technological gap there that's happening. And the message, though, of Star Wars is very powerful. I would say that message is always that you have some sort of power, you have some sort of influence in the world, and you should use those powers for good instead of for evil. And you, guys, as web developers, you do have power, and you can choose to use that power for good rather than for evil. Yoda here has a warning. We set up the audio, so it should sound very good indeed.
You start down the dark path. Forever will it dominate your destiny.
Gosh, I didn't know Yoda had so much to say about tech debt. the question, does your site work without JavaScript, can seem to be a pretty irrelevant one in this day and age. All like mobile browsers run JavaScript. That was one of the first things that smartphones started doing right with the iPhone. And very few people actually go to the trouble of turning off JavaScript in their browsers. But by planning for the worst case scenario, we often find that we will have better results in even the best case scenario. So my job at Rent the Runway was to work on pages like this. If you've ever worked for an e-commerce site, this perhaps looks pretty familiar. You have a grid of products, and all the magic, though, is happening over here. There's a big form where you have to have a bunch of filters working. And this was the existence of this feature was not new to our site, but this feature was working very badly. We had to test it, right, with a lot of acceptance tests. We had to have it work very fast on mobile devices because, like everyone else, we have a growing number of our users from mobile devices. And what we were finding was that the old version of this site was not working very well. I had 2 coworkers to whom I owe a lot of the work that was done here. They helped me a lot with this, which is why I want to give them credit. Their names are John Holden and Will Summers. And we, in the great Death Star that was our company, actually it's more of a Star Destroyer. The Death Star is sort of Google, probably, in terms of ranking of companies. We are not, Darth Vader up striding across. We are just little technicians trying to make sure that everything is working as well as possible while we, stride across the universe, hunting down business and rebels. Have you ever seen something like this on a page? Do you see this custom scroll bar that somebody went to probably quite a lot of trouble of implementing? In this case, this is a custom scroll bar that somebody implemented solely to get a slightly different look on that scroll bar. Now, scrolling has so many things that work very well already. Features that browsers have implemented for scrolling that are great. You can use the space bar to scroll down. You can use arrow keys. If you don't have to re-implement anything on mobile. Delegating to JavaScript, to the JavaScript that your team has written, functionality that browser makers have already been devoting fantastic amounts of resources to, it's just not going to work. It's a recipe for self-destruction. And I want you guys to stay whole and healthy and sane. So ignoring accessibility is a sure path to the dark side of the Force. If you are not thinking of users who need screen readers to navigate your content, if you're not thinking of users who cannot use a mouse to navigate your content, you are doing web development wrong. And eventually, not just your users, but you yourself are going to be pretty angry at your decisions. So here's the thing that I see more and more. Key parts of sites that only exist in modals that pop up. A login form that only exists in a modal, or the key functionality that can only be accessed by having a fully functioning JavaScript instance come up. So this was something from our site that used to work. This was the notion was that we were going to let people create shortlists of our content. Functionality that we want to push. We want everyone to do this, right? Because the more people create these shortlists, the more engaged they'll be with our product. And then we'll have happy business people, which means more money for us engineers, right? Sounds great. Well, this only existed in a little show hide with a cool sliding effect. There was no way to access this page. It didn't have a URL. You know what happens when you don't have a URL for some functionality on your site? Good routing is your only hope of creating a maintainable website. If you, in the future, you decide to deprecate your current web app, which, you guys know that you have deprecated your entire set of code in your lives, started all over again. You switch from Ember to React. You switch from Backbone to Angular. And suddenly, you can't you don't want to go through the trouble of instantiating all of the JavaScript objects that you need to throw up that functionality anymore. What you want is a URL so that you can just send people there without a care in the world. And if you, yes, so the only hope for...
Tell me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
URLs, even better than Jedi Warriors as an ally. So I'd also like to talk about JavaScript errors. Now, you all know that sometimes JavaScript executes differently than you expect on certain browsers and devices. I've even seen cases where JavaScript executed differently on a black and a white version of a certain HTC device because of a very, very, very subtle firmware bug. Now, do you feel that you have 100% coverage for all JavaScript errors across all browsers that could possibly be hitting your code? I want to believe you, but I don't if you say that you do have that. But what you do know is you are capable of monitoring all of your server-side errors probably very well. You have, your server-side monitoring set up very better than your client-side error monitoring. If you've already had a JavaScript error on that page, can you count it to be catching all of those errors, including in vendors and stuff like that, and reporting it correctly to you? Probably not. And please join me for a short medley of every time somebody said, I've got a bad feeling about this in Star Wars.
I have a bad feeling about this.
I've got a bad feeling about this.
Oh, I have a bad feeling about this.
I have a very bad feeling about this.
I got a bad feeling about this.
I have a bad feeling about this.
Have you ever had a bad feeling when you were writing a website?
Bad feeling about this.
Yeah, let's avoid bad feelings. Let's do things that we feel good about. And if you if you have stuff that only works with your JavaScript, your site being fully spun up and working, you are going to get cast into the Sarlacc pit and digested for 1,000 years. Some cool Star Wars trivia. So here is another. You probably think of yourself as a user all the time. You're the person who navigates through the site very, very, very quickly while testing that it works. And you might think of your QA people. You might even think about your customers sometimes while you're coding a website. I do hope occasionally. But you have another set of users who sometimes get sadly ignored. The poor robots just don't understand human behavior. What robots am I talking about? Not, droids like in Star Wars. I'm talking about the bots that browse your site for content. We all know that this is essential for search engine optimization. And also, if you have acceptance tests that are running, in a sense, those are robots browsing your site, right? And have you ever had a really slow set of acceptance tests that makes you want to kill yourself because it takes like an hour to run just to make sure you didn't break your functionality? If you are not, if you are rendering all of your content through JavaScript, it is going to take much longer for robots to browse your site. It's going to be much more error prone. Have you ever been fiddled with like a wait for Ajax handler in a set of acceptance tests? Oh, you turn the sleep time up to 60 seconds just to get it to work, and before you know it, you have both unhappy people who are responsible for deploying your site and unhappy you because you have delegated something that you should be doing to client-side JavaScript. So do you know when you have a JavaScript error on your pages, you think that you have taken care of everything? You are probably wrong. I just don't believe you. If you have a JavaScript error on a page, and I've seen these things happen for reasons as silly as vendors overwriting your version of underscore on a given page. You may know that you have a problem. You may not know that you have a problem because it's only happening for like Androids running like ice cream bar that aren't updated, but you've lost those users. If JavaScript is all that you have to offer them, you can't control their experience because that client is in control of the experience. And while some very clever people may be able to fix your JavaScript in the browser so that it actually works, Probably not a lot of people.
Lord Vader, the fleet has moved out to flight speed and we're preparing to...
You have failed me for the last time, Admiral. Captain Piet.
Yes, my lord.
Make ready to land our troops beyond their energy field, then deploy the fleet so that nothing gets off the system. You are in command now, Admiral Piet.
Thank you, Lord Vader.
Darth Vader really cares about accessibility, guys. Did you know? He's secretly very... So how do you actually do this? Do you have perhaps just an API running with a JSON that serves all of your AJAX endpoints? Well, you can actually, with that, you can get real HTML pages pretty easily. This is a tiny little code sample from some work that we were doing on those Rent the Runway pages I showed you earlier. And basically, this is just a way of splitting the behavior for requests into two. If it's an XHR request, which is to say an AJAX request, just respond with JSON. And if it is not an XHR request, if somebody is requesting the whole page on initial page load, then wrap up all of that AJAX with, wrap up that JSON in an HTML page. And the way that we do that at Rent the Runway is through Node. We have a very small Node process running. It's the only thing we actually use Node for, but it is so essential. We use Node to render that our React content server-side before sending it down the pipeline. And it has allowed us to have the best of both worlds here. So we don't want to, why did we go to AJAX in the first place, right? If JavaScript sucks so much, then why on earth did we ever go to a world where we were getting huge amounts of the content of our pages via asynchronous requests? Well, we did it because we didn't want to reload the frigging page every single time. We wanted to just respond sensitively to only giving the changes in information that the user requested from an already fully loaded app. So with this, you get the best of both worlds. If you are on an initial page load, you give them the full HTML. If it's the additional page loads after that, you already have a fully loaded app. You just go out, ask for a JSON of what's changed, and continue with your day. So you, too, I think, can be a hero by adopting server-side rendering on your app. If you're in React, this is something that's very well documented, very easy to do. If you are on Ember, I believe that they are also moving towards isomorphic server-side rendering solutions, and that it is possible. If you are on Backbone or anything that is a little bit older and maybe a little bit less on the cutting edge, I can't help you, but maybe you can help you. There's a Backbone server-side rendering thing. That's the best thing I've heard all day. Thank you so much. That's great. Good job, Backbone guys. OK, so people on Backbone, you have no excuse. Never mind, I was going to give you an out. No outs. So this is a video I took on the NewYorkTimes.com, one of my favorite websites personally. Look at how the size of this box here is expanding in response to this late loading ad. This really, really sucks as a user experience, because what do users want to do when they get onto your site? They want to click. They want to go somewhere. If they're familiar with the behavior of your site, they want to get there as fast as possible. Just as Han had to shoot as fast as possible. Han shot first, guys. Is that a joke anyone gets here? So here is a quick and dirty list of recommendations. If you have infinite scrolling, keep a more link. If you have a modal, back it up with a URL. Even better, write it as a standalone page and render it into a URL. If you have forms, remember that you are still writing semantic HTML. Keep their method and action attributes, and ensure that your server is set up to respond to it. Never re-implement functionality that browsers do better. And also, maybe your acceptance tests suck because everything is implemented through AJAX. You have one job, and it is to render comprehensible HTML quickly. If JavaScript is getting in the way of you doing that, then JavaScript is the wrong tool for your job. Make Han Solo happy. He's so beautiful. You have to make him happy. Disregarding all of this advice is a sure path to the dark side of the Force. But maybe you actually want that. Now, here are some cases where I could think that you actually would want JavaScript to be the only way that something works. If you have a paywall on your site, and you want to make sure that people who have like no script plugins or stuff, if they're not giving you the page view, then you're not giving them the content. You can do that, but it sounds pretty evil to me. So, of course, I would like to finish up with some great advice.
Then you're my enemy.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
As a true Star Wars fan, the prequels really hurt me. That acting, right? What I want to say by that, though, is that all of these rules are conditional, like all best practices are. If you have something that's very complicated, you may not be able to get it to work without JavaScript. If you're literally writing Google Maps, is that going to work without JavaScript? Well, actually, it used to, up until a couple of years ago. But I'm not going to cry too much for the beautiful past that we've left behind. So the principle that I'd like to say then is we talk about mobile first a lot. And then I think we should add to that JavaScript last. JavaScript truly as a progressive enhancement on top of what's already a great functional site. This is my recommendation for developer and user happiness. So thank you so much for listening. This is a picture of me dressed as a Sith at Halloween one year. It was a great Halloween. If you want to know any more about how to actually implement this in your context, or if you think all of this is really dumb and you want to fight me, please hit me up on Twitter, and I'd be glad to respond to you. Thank you all so much.